السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. My name is Abbas Ibn Sumaila. I'm from Ghana, and I'm a geomedic engineer by profession, or simply I'm a surveyor, survey and mapping officer. I am going to give a presentation on the contributions of Islamic scholar uh, in Islamic civilization or history, and my topic is going to be centered around the personality of someone who was a geographer and a cartographer. And I decided to my choice of this particular personality is born out of the fact that it is related to the background, my professional background I'm coming from. So I saw it as an opportunity to investigate, to know how Islamic scholars in the history of Islam contributed to the act of survey and mapping. I've actually just a minute. Yeah, so the topic or the personality I am going to present on was known or is known in the books of history as Al-IDRISI. Al-IDRISI. I have actually outlined the presentation. First of all, I'll give an introduction that would entail the birth and then the early stages or the early life of Al-IDRISI. We'll look at his contributions to map making and cartography. We'll look at some of the works he has done and then the conclusion. His role name was Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Idris Idris al-Sharif. Idris al-Idrisi was an Arab Muslim geographer, cartographer, and Egyptologist. He was born in Ceuta, Morocco, and belonged to the house of the Alawi Idrisids, claimants to the Caliphate, who ruled the region around Ceuta from AD 789 to 985. Hence, the title Asharif, meaning the noble Al-Idris. His ancestors were the nobles of Malaga, but unable to maintain their authority, they migrated to Ceuta in 11th century. Ceuta is a Spanish autonomous city on the north coast of Africa, bordered by Morocco. It lies along the boundary between the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. Let's look at his education. Al-Idrisi was educated in Cordoba and began his travels when he was barely 16 years old with a visit to Asia. He then traveled along the southern coast of France, visited England, and traveled widely in Spain and Morocco. Cordoba is a city in the southern Spanish region of Andalusia and the capital of the province. It was an important Roman city and a major Islamic center in the Middle Ages. It is known for the La Mezquita, an immense masjid or mosque dating from 784, featuring a columned prayer hall and an older Byzantine mosaics after it became a Catholic church in 1236 AD. Sometime around 11 38 AD, he was invited by the Norman king of Sicily, King Roger II, to his court in Palermo. It was actually ostensibly to protect AL-IDRISI from his enemies, but in fact, King Roger had his own intention, which was to use Al-Idrisi's noble descent to further his own political objective. Sicily is the largest island in the Mediterranean Sea and one of the 20 regions of Italy. There has been a hypothesis that um, Roger was more interested in Al-Idrisi as a possible pretender and potential puppet ruler than a geographer. As a descendant of the Hamudites, former rulers of Malaga, Al-Idrisi would have been useful to Roger in his plans to conquer Islamic Spain and establish his hegemony over the Western Mediterranean. The Hammudite dynasty, Alent is or was a Berberised Arab Muslim family that briefly ruled the Caliphate of Cordoba and the Taifas. Al-Idrisi was conscious of King Roger's expansion in North Africa, and he might even have been expecting to become the ruler of some parts of North Africa himself. Whatever Roger's objectives were or is in inviting Al-Idrisi to his court, he capitalized on the scholar's rich personal experiment with regards to North Africa and Western Europe and asked him to construct a world map and write a commentary on it. Initially, it seemed that Al-Idrisi was not well versed in either geography or cartography. He records his admiration for Roger's proficiency in mathematical and practical sciences and for his devising an iron instrument for calculating latitudes and longitudes. In time, however, Al-Idrisi himself came to be regarded as one of the foremost geographers and cartographers of medieval Europe. In collaboration with other scholars in Roger's court, he completed a world map engraved on silver and geographical compendium entitled The Book of Pleasant Journeys into Faraway Lands, and also known as the Book of Rogers. This can be rated as the zenith of Islamic Norman geographical collaboration. The task of constructing the world map and producing the book was accomplished in the month of Shawwal. After Roger's death in 548, Al-Idrisi continued to work at the court of his successor, William I. Now let's look at the contributions of Al-Idrisi to map making and cartography. During his time, there were two cartographic or map making schools which were developed, namely the Ptolemaic and the Balkhi schools of cartography. Now, cartography is the act of making maps. It's actually a branch of survey and mapping, and it involves the act of making maps, producing maps. Al-Idrisi based his cartography works on the Ptolemaic school, which was the older, dating back to the time of the Caliph Al-Ma'mun, and its origins lay in the classical geographic work of Ptolemy. Ptolemy's geography, sometimes rendered in Arabic as Surat al-Ard, became the basis of several geographies. Though Al-Idrisi based his work on the Ptolemaic school, he also made use of the Balkhi schools as sources for some of his works. He refers to the works of Ibn Hawkal, who was a 10th century Arab Muslim writer and geographer, as one of his sources. The special feature of the cartography of the Balkhi cartographers was that they confined themselves to drawing regional maps of Islamic empires. They actually divided the kingdom into 20 to 22 regions or provinces and drew separate maps of each given their descriptions. A regional map, as I mentioned, in the just past statement is an administrative division of a country into regions or state capitals. So, for example, in the United States, where we have states, uh, each map covering the state is a regional map. Al-Idrisi's work were mostly improvement on various maps based on the Ptolemaic cartography, which were produced by earlier geographers and cartographers, such as Al-Ma'mun maps, which were the most exquisite, which were the most exquisite of all maps. Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn Misa and the world map of mariners of Tyre. Al-Idrisi Al-Idrisi's maps focus on sectional and navigational maps and are certainly an advance over both these maps mentioned above. As you might expect, the sections of Al-Idrisi's sectional maps covered Europe, North Africa, Western Asia, and Central Asia. And of course, the maps that covered Central Asia were more accurate than those that covered Southern Asia, China, and the Far East. The title of some of his works are The Gardens of Intimacy and Pleasure, that's Nuzhat al-Mushtik, Rawij al-Uns wal Nuzhat al-Nafs, Gardens of Intimacy and Pleasure of the Soul, prepared for King Roger II's successor, William I. In the early 20th century, yet another work by Al-Idrisi was discovered in Istanbul. There are two titles associated with it: Uns al-Muhaj wa Rawij al-Faraj, Intimacy of Souls and Gardens of Pleasure, and Rawij al-Faraj wal Nuzhat Muhaj, Gardens of Pleasure and Recreation of Souls, of the Souls. Now let's look at his works. Al-Idrisi's service in Sicily resulted in the completion of three major geographic works, namely one, a silver planisphere on which was depicted a map of the world, a world map consisting of 70 sections formed by dividing the earth north of the equator into 7 climatic zones of equal width, each of which was subdivided into 10 equal parts by lines of longitudes. And then 3, a geographic text intended as a key to the planisphere. Exhaustive description in the text include the physical, cultural, political, and then socio-economic conditions of each region. Each of the 70 sections of text has a corresponding sectional map, although the text and map are not identical in content. This was his great work of descriptive geography known as Kitab Nuzhat al-Mushtaq fil Ishtirak al-Afaq, and also as Kitab Rujar or Kitab al-Rujari, the book of Rujar. In compiling it, Al-Idrisi combined material from Arabic and Greek geographic works with information obtained through first-hand observation and eyewitness report. The king and his Muslim geographers chose a number of persons, including men skilled in drawing, and dispatched them to various countries to observe and record what they saw. Al-Idrisi completed the book in January 1154, shortly before Roger's death. Now, these are just pictorial views of some of Al-Idrisi's works. This is the world map he produced, and this is the Nuzhat al-Mustaq fil Ishtirak al-Falak. That's the journey of one who is eager to traverse. Now, when you compare this map produced in the olden days to the current map we have, you can see that the idea of maps, or the maps we have now, came from these maps that Al-Idrisi produced. The only difference is that the current maps seem to be more clearer and accurate than what Al-Idrisi and his likes produced. But then looking at the concept behind it, I mean, you can clearly determine that the idea of even how to present the graphics on paper actually came